I really appreciate our time here, and I'm thankful that I'm able to go ahead and present to all of you. This is kind of short notice, but I'd like to focus uh, on our conference. I do want to introduce myself and the emerging theme. My name is Ray Friedman, and just a little bit about myself. I'm the CEO and president of Mile2. I've been in cybersecurity since 2002, and I'm just very actively involved in the InfoSec consulting world in financials, communications, telephony, everything. Almost every single government space, focusing on penetration tests, audits, forensic services. I'm an author. I'm an expert in cyber warfare and cyber crime. I been involved with Mile2 for a long time, and spearheaded all of the certification programs that we have. I think we have over 40 certs in accreditation bodies under the NSA, and also the global accreditation company of ANAB ANSI. That's the most prestigious accreditation body in the world. I have a master's in forensics, in accounting with a focus of forensics and auditing. I'm a PhD student at Liberty University, focusing on national security and public policy, and I have a slew of certifications you can see. So without any further delay, our focus is emerging threats for 2023. This is a presentation I give every single year because it's very important that we are focused on the threats that we're going to be dealing with in this year. So just to go back a few years, 2021, I like to always give a landscape from previous years and what we're going to be looking forward to, right? So in 2020, I mean, technology really began to become just so globalized as technology increased even in the most remote areas in the world, right? As long as they can have some sort of connectivity, technology increases. But wherever there's technology that increases, so do vulnerabilities. And when vulnerabilities increase, so do cyber hacks. 2022, which is last year, we saw the development of the dark web and dark web resources. And so this particular craft of hacking and developing applications that are malicious really just exploded in the scene. And we're seeing it, individuals and critical infrastructure and secure, very high sensitive networks being compromised. I mean, I've been very impressed with the development of this dark space. And so the real question that we have for ourselves this year as CISOs is, what kind of measures are we going to implement, or how are we going to counter respond to these emerging threats in a timely, competent, and proactive manner? And that's really what this presentation is all about. This is a very brief outline that I was able to whip up last night and this morning. We're going to talk about the emerging threats that we're going to be discussing for 2023, a whole slew of them. I'm going to talk about the 5 key security pillars. I'm going to go into the emerging threats and the potential solutions, and also a little bit of question and answer session at the end. And for any individuals that are still with me at the end of the presentation, Mile2 graciously will be providing a free certified vulnerability assessor ultimate combo. I think we sell what, $995 US here in the States. So I think it's worth sticking around and listening to this presentation. But without further ado, let's go ahead and go right into my introduction. So, I like to look at this, I guess, emergent threat space as a chess game, right? I mean, in the context of cybersecurity, emerging threats are in many ways, they're the new kids on the block, right? Started with very kiddie scripts, very simple hacking applications, but now it's really evolved, hasn't it? It's become very sophisticated space, these emerging threats. So from detractor states or nation state espionage to deepfake technology, and these emerging threats are evolving in ways we never imagined. And here's the scary part. These threats are becoming more connected to who? Our children, to our kids. They're they're not just government entities or corporate spaces, but also at home, right? To me, it's kind of like it's kind of like a chess game. As these things have become more advanced and more difficult to predict, this chess game is to basically understand your enemy. And when you understand your enemy, you know, you have a potential ability to win the game. But if you fail to try to understand the enemy, well, what happens is that you lose the game. And in many cases, people are losing big time. We're going to use some case studies as time permits, and we'll go from there. Let's see. Go here. Oh, trying to see why my video is not looking so hot. Give me 1 second, guys. All right, to continue here. All right, so the question now is you know, what is the solutions? And I always start with the 5 key pillars of security. And they seem to be relatively basic. A lot of us understand the CIA, right? The confidentiality, the availability, and integrity, and I can appreciate that. But I like to go a little bit more, right? We have safety, which is a solution in these 5 pillars, a solution that ensures that all reliable copies of mission critical data are available to key employees at all times. Think about all the moving pieces in the data that allows your company to function and to be efficient, right? I mean, that's at the end of the day what runs our economy. Think about privacy. Organizations, they have to have a complete control over all the access of their digital data, right? Security. Organizations have got to start implementing protective measures that secures the entire infrastructure against upcoming threats. Accessibility. Does the organization have the access or to their technical footprints, and even more, is it secure, right? So it's not only is it accessible, but is it secure from anywhere in the world? Because we're working from all over the world, right? I do business everywhere. We have 140 locations or more than that all over the world, and we're interfacing transcontinentally. And of course, authenticity. We got to ensure that organizations are able to create and demand verifiable proof that the copies of data, the stuff that we have, is authentic, right? Is meticulously secure, that replica of the original is authentic. So, these is, as long as organizations have proper cybersecurity policies, we're able to respond to emerging threats and in a manageable way. While there are many threats in the business world that, we're facing, we've got to focus on the emerging threats, because without creating potential solutions, it's very difficult to remediate these threats, right? All right. So where are a lot of these threats coming from? Well, nation state actors. I mean, I've got a nice map that you'll be able to take a view where a lot of the DDoS attacks are coming from. But these nation state actors are Russia, Iran, China. What is a nation state attack? It occurs when a licensed nation state actor that's separate from government works to target another government in order to obtain valuable intelligence. And we think about, what kind of intelligence are we talking about? IP, trade secrets, right? Meaningful assets that are worth some serious dollars. And usually these targets are to larger corporations. Now, during all of us experience on a global scale, right? The COVID. Well, when COVID evolved, what do you think was being targeted? What do you think was the greatest prize? Of course, the vaccine, right? So all these lives are dying, and the COVID vaccine cost the U.S. government hundreds of millions of dollars to develop in a very short span. Well, can you imagine being able to get your hands a hold of this COVID vaccine with no research and development? And now we've got nanotechnology. Nanotechnology are all sorts of research that develops countries from being able to work on a small scale and to do big things, right? A good example of nanotechnology is what fuels the electric world and automobiles and, who knows, planes and very sophisticated devices. These are the items that nation state actors are targeting, right? These are huge prizes. So how do we stop, or at least create solutions against these nation state attacks? And you might not have been subject to it, but the US is subject to nation state attacks all the time, right? Well, you got to start implementing critical cybersecurity to to manage these risks. I mean, in the United States, each president, they have these executive directives, and it's on a national scale. And what they're trying to do is deploy these policies on a local scale or in a state scale, right? But the problem is that a lot of these local state entities, right, don't function on a national scale. They don't understand national directives, and I'm not sure how it is in your country, but the reality is the way the government works is not the same way that individual privately owned companies function, right? Right? I mean, we have different ideologies, different platforms, different ways to interface. So what I like to suggest to everyone is that you've got to stop acquiring or technology or interfacing with technologies that function or are managed by nation states, right? So right now we're having this issue with TikTok, right? That's managed by China. So there's this big issue as to should we permit TikTok to run on government run applications or private devices, and they've just banned them, I think, in the House. But the point is that I think that we should just not implement or use these type of applications. They pose a serious threat, right? So that's one way. A second way is to isolate internal networks from the internet, right? So things that are of great value, isolate them, right? Another way is to share cyber threat information, which we'll go into. The government's trying to do that with private entities, all right? And I'm going to go into it later on as to ways that could be done. But yeah, share your cyber threat information with other organizations on other universal platforms. And that way we're able to be versed on what may happen or what one organization was subject to. And we could be proactive knowing that this has been done to another technological org. And ultimately, yeah, security awareness. I was giving security awareness training most of the time, but that really, I understand many of you guys are very technical. So that's why we're giving away the vulnerability assessor. It's really cool, love it. But your staff should have some form of cybersecurity awareness training. I like to have certification training to ensure that they've met a minimum standard, right? Let's move on. So what do they do? Well, most of these nation state detractor states, they love doing DDoS, which stands for distributed denial of service. And what DDoS is a method that cyber criminals use to flood networks, right? And I'm sure a lot of you guys are familiar with this. So they flood the networks or websites in a way that data can't be transferred, websites can't be used, and these attacks are easy to organize because it simply takes two devices to send fake traffic, right? To a server or website. And what do? They shut down the website. They prevent users from accessing the website. It's a total royal pain. But essentially, it just overloads the system to the point of shutting down. There's a lot of stats. They're always evolving and changing, but here's some of them. Over 33% of businesses fail to, fall to be victimized by DDoS attacks. And it's really almost impossible to predict it, right? Some of the statistics say that it could be several terabytes. That's how powerful some of these DDoSs are, right, per second. And according to Encapsula, which I like to follow, DDoS attacks cost businesses around $40,000 per hour, depending on what your economy looks like, or where do these DDoS attacks come from? A lot of them come from China. Look at this. The subject is the U.S., Europe, and they come a lot from different areas of Asia or different parts of the Middle East. But these are examples as to where these attacks are organized. To move on, so I guess we ask ourselves, what kind of solutions are there? Well, I always tell partners or companies that come to us that are victims of DDoS is hire well-trained, certified individuals and professionals that understand this arena. I don't understand, if you don't have a trained individual in this department, why not hire a third-party organization that's going to help protect and preserve your assets, right? So that's the second thing you do. You can implement and have these tools either on your servers that assess incoming traffic. They're able to interface a lot of your data. They're kind of like the medium. I got these little images here that could show you, that gives an example as to how it could cipher between DDoS and legitimate traffic. Obviously, the third is to protect all your 7 layers by utilizing organizations and applications like Cloudflare or Encapsula or Akamai. These are excellent solutions. We don't even manage our own, these type of issues. I third-party them. We utilize Cloudflare and all sorts of. We actually use 2 different security third-party organizations. Plus, we have our own technical measures within our organization. So we are double downing when it comes to these kinds of things to ensure that our what services, our cyber range is secure and functioning. Then here we have zero-day exploits. This is really, really big. I've presented on zero-day exploits for 3 years in a row. Same thing with DDoS, because they're not going away. And this is one of the major means in which detractor nations and rogue agents this is what they're using to attack corporations and organizations that possess critical infrastructure. The term 0 day refers to the number of days that the vendor, right, has had access or been able to have or been aware of these issues. It refers to the number of days that individuals being able to kind of respond to them. I mean, nobody knows about these vulnerabilities except the person who kind of created it and discovered it. So these vulnerabilities are relatively unknown, and they are considered to be technically unpatched, right? So studies show that zero-day exploits account for about 30% of all the malware. We're going to get into the great emphasis of not only malware, but different types of malware. But these attackers, they discover coding vulnerabilities. That's why when you're creating applications, it's important to do a secure code before you launch them. And it's really important to do them in some sort of sound, secure infrastructure, right? Some sort of testing box, right? Anyways, I guess it's been assessed that when these attacks happen, I mean, it can cost organizations hundreds of thousands of dollars, and these type of state-sponsored espionage or implementing these type of softwares, you got to be very careful. So I guess the real question is, how do we respond to them? I mean, what do we do? Well, the first thing that I always tell my clients is be aware of what kind of zero-day products are out there, right? I mean, you could buy almost anything in the dark web, and these are just different types of examples. And so it's important to better understand, in the market space and what you can get in certain different sandboxes and in the dark web. And so, first of all, better understanding what zero-day exploits are, where do they get them, where do they come from, I think are very critical. I think it's a very sound advice to be versed in them. These are some excellent ways to prevent it. It's a great solution. I always tell everyone, always patch your systems, right? I mean, patching your systems is a priority. Almost every single pen test I've done, there's always some sort of system that's not patched, right? Automate this stuff. Talk to the vendors. Seek advice. Find out how to competently and proactively and automatically patch your network. When you're staying on top of this, the software, right? It's pretty essential to defending against zero-day exploits, but updating or patching isn't the exclusive way. You've got to protect your network by installing antivirus softwares, right? So what kind of software that we can do or implement? Signature-based detection, zero-day antivirus and behavioral-based detections, Bitfinders, Malwarebytes. They usually are relatively pretty good. This is my favorite one, right? Join Wazoo or OTE. If you're a company, you have a lot of very important assets or IP, this is where you should be hanging out. joining this particular community is very advantageous, and I'll tell you why, right? They basically, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Alien Vault, but it's now they're being managed by AT&T. What's really cool about this is that OTX receives like key signature data, like from new threats, and makes them available to everybody, all the different types of hashes and where the IP addresses came from and what were the operating system changes. It's really great. And so when you install I guess they've called SIEM, it's Security Info Event Management within your network. Once you've installed it, these applications can retrieve OTX data, and they have the ability to continuously scan for the latest threats. So this is one of the best ways to respond to zero-day exploits, okay? This is my favorite, ransomware. This is on the rise. Why? Because people got to pay, right? Ransomware attack means that hackers encrypt victims' data and demands payment to restore access. This is a major threat for 2023. We just got done with a handful of scenarios. Let me give you a case study, but I'm a runner. I like to train. Garmin just went through this. They were down for 3 or 4 days, right? They had to pay up. These attacks particularly are devastating for small and medium-sized businesses because they don't have the money to actually pay off these ransoms. They don't have the resources to take, either to respond, and they don't have resources to pay. So ransomware has become a very lucrative business in the cyber criminal world. Once malware basically infects your machines, it just attacks these files, they encrypt them, and there's nothing you could do, right, without having the step-by-step process and passwords to decrypt it. Ransomware is a type of malware that can originate from multitude of different sources. It comes from phishing, from unauthorized downloads, even phone calls, believe it or not, even text messages. So when this occurs, the attacker then demands ransom, a financial payment, to restore access to the victim's data. And that's why the cryptocurrency, that medium has become so popular, right? The Bitcoin, if you want to pay off these, the ransomware, usually it's cryptocurrency. But it's estimated that about 1,000% increase, right, in the ransomware arena. That's how much it's increased in 2022. And they're estimating close to $10 trillion in damages by the end of 2023. This is a pretty colossal space. I truly believe ransomware is going to become more front and center. So we got to ask ourselves, first of all, let's look at it. Here's a really good example. This is a ransomware case study that I recently did in my PhD studies. For many of you guys that aren't familiar with the Colonial Pipeline, it was founded on May 7th. It's an American petroleum pipeline organization, and they were attacked in May 7th, 2021. And what's really wild about this organization is this is I believe, the biggest petroleum pipeline in the United States. It feeds and services all the way from the north to the southeast, as you can see. So this is a pretty big venture, right? Fuels about 100 million gallons of fuel daily. So in 2021, May 7, the pipeline organization was compromised by ransomware. The FBI confirmed it was a Russian cyber gang called DarkSide. I'm not sure if many of you guys are familiar with them, but they're known to for ransomware. In any case, they compromised the Colonial Pipeline, and they assumed that maybe, I guess, DarkSide was in the network for about 6 months, 5 months, 4 months. They don't know, but they believe they had compromised the network long before the manifestation or where they decided to have this problem. But it was reported that once they experienced the ransomware, they stopped the entire pipeline network for about 5 days. They did everything they could. They suspended and ultimately closed the pipeline, and just to ensure that the malware would stop spreading. So without success, trying to figure it out, remediating the ransomware, they had to upchuck $4.4 million. That's a huge payday for the dark side Russian gang. In any case, at the end of the day, they were offline. They cost them millions of dollars, probably what, 20, 30, 40 million dollars just in services, plus the $4.4 million in the ransomware. So this is a pretty costly venture, and that's why it's so critical that we're being proactive to implement policies and controls to detour ransomware. So what can we do, right? The first thing, again, update, patch. But apart from that, you've got to stop installing software that you're not familiar with. So being in emerging countries, just because you can get something for free doesn't mean that it's not going to cost you. It's very critical that when you are installing software that you're versed with it, that the developers are well known, that they've been assessed, that they have a good rapport. So it's very important that you install software that you're versed with. Make sure that your backups are automated, and not only that, do them frequently, and ensure that when you do have an update or a backup, that it's uncorrupted, that you have an uncorrupted copy of your data. So how do you do this? You implement software applications that measures the actual data size of your data. So depending on from one copy to the next, good software will be able to assess the size of the data backup from the original backup. Think about it, right? The software is able to evaluate all backups and assess any anomalies within that data. And when an anomaly is discovered or flagged, right, we're able to investigate it. Doesn't that make sense, right? So, there's all sorts of different ways to ensure that you can secure your system. So secondly, also back up your system locally. Not only locally, but in a cloud, right? Offshore it. I like to offshore some of my backups. Cloud solutions are a great way to do this. The benefit of cloud backups is it provides redundancy. There's an extra layer of protection. And it's genius to have multiple backups, isn't it? And ensure that your backups are encrypted. Another great way is to segment your network. Limit when you divide your network, you're segmenting, your I guess exposure. Using dynamic controls, almost by doing that, you're able to divide and one network, one limited aspects of your network is compromised. It's just subject to one single attack, and you're able to segregate your network in district zones. And I like to even tell some of my clients, make sure that you have different credentials in different segments of your network, right? Another thing is, fourthly, is to implement early threat detection systems, right? So when you install ransomware protection software, make sure that it can help identify potential attacks. Early unified threat management programs can find intrusions, right, and prevent them. I'm just going to keep going on because I don't want to belabor the ransomware solution, but I'm going to tell you a lot of us are going to be subject to these type of I guess ransomware. Let's move on. Let's go to a next one here. This is ransomware continued, right? So create and restore, and make sure that you have many recovery points. If you're using Windows, go to the control panel and turn to the system restore. Look into it, right? Make sure that you have a lot of recovery points and that you have enough, I guess, opportunities to go as far as you can. I love to save these recovery points 6 months back, right? I think that's pretty smart. The seventh way is train your employees. Educate them. I always go back to security awareness. What is ransomware? How does ransomware attack individual employees? What mistakes do they make, right? So security awareness is very critical when it comes to recognizing different signs of phishing attacks. Anyways, there's so much more that we can go into it, but let's keep moving forward. So let's get into my favorite part, artificial intelligence, right? Why is this so important? Why is this an emerging threat? First, I don't know how many of you guys are versed with our artificial intelligence. If you're not, I hope that you can take a seat, drink your Starbucks or Red Bull, because this is about to get real, right? Artificial intelligence is widespread. This adoption of artificial intelligence really is unlocking the value in data, and it is driven in many business initiatives now. But AI is a tool that can also be exploited by bad actors. I mean, there is really great risk in the industrialization of high volume, high impact, tailored cyber attacks against organizations. And really, if we're not prepared, it could be completely overwhelming. And if we're not responsive, these type of attacks are incredibly effective against unequipped organizations. And it's risky to rely also heavily on automated defenses to protect your information. I mean, ineffective implementation or lack of human oversight can really lead to costly events, especially when you're being subject to artificial intelligence attacks, right? So in any circumstance, let's go into it. What does this mean? Well, artificial intelligence and machine learning, my fave. It's becoming more prevalent in the cybersecurity arena. I mean, this growth of this technology is booming. And when you have this type of booming technology, so are the vulnerabilities. And these vulnerabilities can be exploited by hackers. And it's becoming a public threat, right? So AI, artificial intelligence and ML, machine learning, they are developed to make decisions. They're designed to predict outcomes, right? And a lot of us are interfacing with AI, and we don't even know it, right? Banking applications, companies are using them for customer service or support, right? Or sales. But so let's kind of get an idea of how it works, right? AIs use algorithms to use stimulated thinking, right? In many ways, kind of like our brains and how they function. And what's really wild about AI is that they have a neural network, and it's based on stimulated neurons built on perceptions. And these perceptions use binary numbers like zeros and ones, and they're built on greater or less than a threshold. So as it runs down its way, as it's doing a process of elimination, it runs its way down, ultimately creating decision or outcome, right? These zeros and ones. And what's very alarming is that when Elon Musk was speaking about artificial intelligence, he said that this is an emerging threat. This is a very serious threat to the survival of the human race. When he was being interviewed at MIT, right, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, one of the most prestigious technology schools in the world, he said, "I think that we should be very careful about artificial intelligence. In fact, I had to guess at what our biggest existential threat is. It's probably that. So we need to be very careful." That's what Elon Musk said. He also said, "I'm increasingly inclined to think that there should be some regulatory oversight, maybe at the national or international level, just to make sure that we don't do something very foolish." He's assuming that if we're not very, very, very careful, that AI can really take over major aspects of almost every economical aspects, right, of every industry that we understand and interface with. So how is AI a threat on a technical level? Well, I'm going to tell you a little bit more of what I understand when it comes to their attacks or their threats. So artificial intelligence poisoning attacks are on the rise. And this threat is when an AI has a poisoning attack, what happens is that the adversary is able to inject bad data into the model's training pool. And this allows the AI to learn something it wasn't supposed to learn. The most common result of poisoning attack is when a model's boundary or demarcation shifts in some fashion erroneously. And what happens is that there are two ways that something can be done, right? So those targeting your ML's availability or understanding, right? And those targeting its integrity are also known as backdoor. These are the two different types of ways. And what are the results to this output is that the hacker control the result. So let me give you an example, right? So we all understand that green means go and red means stop, right? Well, what if there was a way to inject bad code, right? And when it's reprogrammed, you're able to interpret, or the AI is able to interpret that the opposite happens, right? So in a malicious way, to oppose, I guess green means red, or means to stop, and green means go. Can you imagine what that would be like if you were driving an electronic car or something that was assumed to stop, right? And it went when it was red, and it stopped when it was supposed to go. And if you could think of even a more malicious way, right? Think about the reality that we can implement in some of these AI machines, some of these robots, where you start to implement in a malicious way that you may, I guess, get them to understand or oppose good actions at the security level, right? So eschew or deny good actions and embrace evil actions, such as the violation of life, right? So when a robot's supposed to secure life, you inject malicious code to violate life. And this is very destructive to humanity. We see these things in the movies, but they can really happen if you think about it. I guess some statistics was done that even under strong defenses, a 3% training data, right? Because that's what's in their pool, that poisoning 3% of their training data, its output is a 11% drop in their accuracy. In backdoor attacks, which are much more sophisticated, backdoor is a type of input that model designers is not aware of the attack that can leverage control of the machine learning systems to do what they want when they want to. So it's really critical that we secure the logical, I guess, the machine learning and the data within the pool against logic corruption and data manipulation. There's a lot that we can learn about data modification. Here in data modification, attackers doesn't have access to the algorithms itself, but they can change and add or remove training data, which isn't good. And then there's the worst, logic corruption, which is the most dangerous scenario. Logic corruption happens when the attacker can change the algorithm and the way it learns. And at this stage, the original machine learning doesn't even matter because the attacker can, install or encode any of the logic that they want. So that's a very dangerous, I guess, threat when it comes to AI poisoning. So I'm sure you guys are really excited, ready to embrace AI. So the question is, what do we do to remediate this issue? So again, the science of AI poisoning is very extensive and it's very deep. It's very complex, but it's also in its infancy stages. We're better understanding how it works. And so some of those common ways to defend these models, first of all, is within the model defense, they have to have an outlier or detection, also known as a data sanitization or anomaly detection. And the idea is pretty simple. When there's a poisoning within the machine learning system, the attacker is by definition injecting something into the training pool that is foreign or very different from the existing pool of data by default, right? The poisoning should be detected when it's compared. Why? Because it's an outlier of foreign learning from its original machine learning database. And once it's detected, it should be compared for model accuracy. And if it's foreign, then ultimately it should be rejected or removed, or at least flagged, right, from the learning pool. So these are just some cyber security companies that have been heavily invested in the defense and security of AI and machine learning, right? Darktrace, CNET, FireEye, Check. So check it out. Checkpoint, Semantic. Look into them. I think this is a very fascinating arena. I also included deepfake audio and video threat part of this because in the cybersecurity landscape, deep fake technologies are becoming more of a threat, and they started back in the 2021 when it was becoming a little bit more prevalent. And for you guys that don't know what deep fakes are, it's a synthetic media. They're photos, videos, or audio files that are manipulated by our artificial intelligence. For example, a deepfake video occurs when algorithms are used to replace one person or someone. An audio deepfake is when a hacker clones a person's voice and uses it to produce synthetic audio. And if you really think about it, maliciously, a deepfake video technology can be used to make people appear to say things or do things that they didn't do or they didn't say, right? Isn't everyone's public testimony the big thing now, right? Or what's your, what can people find out about you on the internet, right? Whether it's true or not true. So these deep fakes and cyber attacks on businesses are huge, and they're on an uptick. And the falsification of video and audio is a widespread phenomenon. They're used to manipulate reality, especially with public opinion. They are utilizing it for defamation or propaganda or even psychological terrorism, right? So think about it. For example, cyber criminals are using AI-based deepfake technologies to impersonate politicians or CEOs to gain access to IP or financial records, or even request fraudulent bank transfers or requests of sensitive data. Deepfake audio and video is big, and it is booming, right? Especially in these dark spaces. So what do we do, right? I mean, the solutions, although deepfake detection technology is still a developing area, there's a few things that we can do. Some software technologies that are available can recognize fake video and audio. Microsoft's boasting about their new tools that claim it can detect the presence of deepfake software, when it's instilled in images or videos when they're online. They also claim that their software can rank the media with a percentage chance or confidence score to give the indication of how likely the material has been artificially created. Secondly, you could also implement specific technologies against deepfake based on artificial intelligence. It's like AI versus AI. It's like red versus blue. Can you imagine that? How do you fight against AI? Well, you use AI, right? It's kind of crazy. I mean, think about it. This is an example, adding noise pixels in videos to prevent modifications or analyzing frames or acoustic spectrums in order to detect any distortions, right? Sounds like something an AI can do. I'm predicting in the next years, the growing threat of deepfakes to organizations are going to force companies to use AI and machine learning to develop technologies that can automatically and autonomously, are able to recognize and discern these type of deep fakes, right? So we're going to see what happens. But again, this is a very these type of technologies are still at the infancy stages, and we're still learning. There is so much more that we can talk about. But I know that we can only, absorb so much. I try to keep my presentations to about 45 to 50 minutes. So the question comes down to the question is like, what are we going to do to prepare ourselves, right? The cyber threat landscape is growing exponentially. What are we doing? Are we prepared? I mean, a lot of these organizations, my organization, we've got to continue to make light of the cybersecurity landscape. We've got to continue to really focus into it. We really have to take it seriously. There's still companies that are not taking cybersecurity seriously at all. But we've got to continue to challenge ourselves and push ourselves. We've got to become more aware of vulnerabilities, more aware of what cyber hackers are doing. I've shared a few, ideas, a few emerging threats. I've shared a few options of remediation, how we could prevent some of these issues, right? AI poisoning attacks, ransomware attacks, deepfake audio and video, spoofing accounts, nation state attacks. I've shared a little bit about DDoS and zero-day exploits. The question is, what are you going to do about it, right? The solutions are not ever going to be simple, but we can take them seriously, and we've got to start with security awareness for everybody, right? We're just as strong as our weakest employee. So it's very important to be proactive, to be diligent, to safeguard our stuff, our data, right? So be vigilant, be secure, and always go the second mile, right? So I'm going to go ahead and start with our questions before I give or provide the information to our giveaway. So I'm opening it up. Does anybody have any technical questions for in respects to the presentation, or perhaps maybe what Mile2 can do with the cybersecurity certification program in Bangladesh? I'm available to answer any question. I'm a Jedi ready to go. Talk to me.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Raymond. And right now, if you have any questions from the audience, please ask him. If you have any question, you can unmute yourself and ask him regarding.
Or you can type it. You can also type your question, and somebody can go ahead and read it, because I got 30 screens right now in front of me. Can't keep up with anything anymore.
Okay, and for your kind information, in our conversation, there are many people in this conversation. They are doing great work in Bangladesh in cybersecurity sectors, and they are in a good positions. A lot of them are in their conversation, and we have lots of keynote speakers. They are already said about the artificial intelligence and some topics, and and there we have learned some new concept about the cybersecurity, and the important things is Mr. Red said about the deepfake audio and videos. It is most important. So if you have any questions, you can ask him, please, kindly.
Hello.
Yes, I'm so glad I have a question. I can't imagine that you're the only question. Talk to me.
As per security concern, human resources is the crucial aspect. I mean, we need to train the people about cybersecurity. So, how we can train up people by spending minimum cost? Have you got my question?
Okay, so you're asking, how can we train your staff cost effectively, right?
Yes.
Okay, well, first of all, if I might submit this, first of all, I want to thank you for your question, because I love to interact. I love to give advice, because I truly believe that the next World War III is a cyber war. We need to wake up. All of us need to wake up. All of us, where everything is going digital, and it is a very scary time. And for those who are creating companies, we're subject to our employees and their unawares. And so if you're a business owner or you're planning to build a dream, you need to listen up seriously. Secondly, if you're not a business owner and you care about your finances, you care about your identity, you better listen up, okay? Because everything is going digital. And thirdly, if you have children, this cyber war is coming to your children. So everything that I'm going to tell you is very relevant to every single person, because I'm telling you, every single one of us will be subject to some sort of cyber attack. It's not whether it's going to happen, it's when. So I appreciate your question. First of all, it is my conviction that every single employee should go through security awareness. Everybody. Why is that? because there are habits that we all have, especially those who are older, that are, wireless, it can be expensive depending on where you're at, or it's not as accessible. So we like to go to hotspots, free wireless connective locations. Well, when you're exchanging data, you're going on your Facebook, you're going on to your Twitter, or whatever it is that you're obsessed with, or you're going on to some form of financial application like your banking system. It's easy to poison these networks and retrieve your data, especially when it's in open plain text, right? So one of the first things that I do is I go into a corporation, I just poison the whole network. We say, oh, but there's poison, provisions where you can stop poison. That's not necessarily true. I could still execute man in the middle, right? So security awareness is very critical, and it should be from the very point that when somebody's employed, that should be part of their onboarding process. Secondly, it should be done on an annual basis. And so if you really want it to be cost effectively, why not certify one person within your organization, and they themselves can execute the security awareness training once a year when it's really slow, and ensuring that everybody understands, right? Thirdly, there's a lot of tools in which you can get security awareness training very cost effectively, online. And I don't think it's about obtaining security awareness training cost effectively. It's more about implementing it competently. That's the biggest problem, right? And ensuring that everybody went through it and everyone is taking it seriously, right? So that's my conviction, and I think it should be done on an annual basis, but you have the power to train one person, and that person could disseminate the learning. I do have security awareness now, which I was giving away a certified vulnerability assessor. If you want a security awareness, I could do that too, and you could see what it's like. But that's my conviction as to how someone should be trained, and how you can do that very cost effectively within an organization.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I have a question in chat. The question is, do you think Bitcoin can be traceable?
Absolutely. My answer is very short. Yes. I mean, absolutely. How do you think that they're able to trace perpetrators or individuals that, let's say if you have ransomware, they're able to trace the Bitcoin. What made you think? How did the United States and the intelligence know who most likely the perpetrator was? Right. So the answer is absolutely yes. Right. As long as there's a digital footprint, of course it could be traced. Can everybody do it? No. But trust me, it can be traced. I'm curious, why are you asking the question?
Thank you, sir. Mr. Nizam has raised his hand. Please ask your question by unmuting your microphone. Mr. Nizam.
Yeah. Hi, Raymond. This is Nizam.
Yes.
So thank you very much for your nice presentation. Actually, so far we are learning and seeing that the new technology comes and at the same time hacker also try to breach that technology, and for that reason the security measures need to ensure. So AI is one of the most important part here to detect automatically the malware or zero days attack. But today I have seen that there is another point, which is AI poisoning. So there is it is not also secure. So I have missed something. Would you please just brief a short brief about the AI poisoning and the solution?
Well, I did I did explain the AI solution, which is here. And I don't want to repeat it, but it is important that you implement, I guess, a type of application by FireEye or something of the sort. And as I've already explained it, they really compare data and from any anomalies, or it really compares model accuracy and things like that. So I don't want to go into it, but these are the companies that provide these type of softwares. I placed 7 of them, I believe. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 of them, right? And they have solutions as to how you can counter respond to different types of AI poisoning. So, and this is more relevant when you are using AI, and big companies are, right? So
these are the EDR solution, FireEye, Dark Trace. These are the EDR solution, or
these companies have the applications and the software to counter respond or and detect AI poisoning. So as I mentioned here, a lot of the different types of softwares, what they do is they detect outliers, right? And as I had mentioned, they detect anomalies within the machine learning data, right? And so when something is different, they acknowledge or flag it as corrupt, right? And when that happens, it's identified or flagged, and then we can address it and assess it as to why the data, the machine learning why there's a corrupt or foreign data within the pool of data. And that's really the only thing that they've come up with right now. But it's very effective, right? Isn't that kind of what you do with IDS, right? IDS solutions, right? When you see an anomaly, it's flagged and it notifies you, right? So it's the same way within machine learning, and I think it's brilliant. I mean, I'm a forensics guy, and I'm not sure if you're versed with steganography. Well, one of the ways that you can, whether an image has been corrupted, is that the size or just the attributes of that image or whatever document you're using has changed. So the variable, the attributes of that document are different now. So that flags it, saying, hey, this image, this document, right? The variance, the original data stamp has changed. And so it flags me, and I am able to look and see why. And that's basically the same ideology when it comes to recognizing that AI has been poisoned, right? So that's a good explanation in its very simplistic way. Okay, what other questions we got?
Thank you.
Yeah, we have some questions. Someone has asked for a suggestion. The question is, what can be the best software solution for ransomware attack?
What is the what? Which I apologize. What'd you say?
He asked, what can be the best software solutions for ransomware attack? Do you have any suggestions?
Well, I stated the 7. I have basically, how many? Goodness me, do I have? Let's see, where is it here? I have 10 different solutions, and I believe that I went through the first 6 or 7. So I did go into how you can divide your network, segment your network, making sure that each network has different credentials, so that limits the damage when it comes to ransomware. I also did explain that it's very critical that you have multiple different backups, right? And these backups are local in cloud, right? That's very important to do continuous backups and to do them extensively, I do 6 months, right? I also explained that you really need to install or implement early threat detection systems and install anti-malware. And they function very similarly, if I may submit this to you. When you install ransomware protection, it basically identifies what they would assume is a potential attack. And so early unified threat management programs can find these type of attacks, right? When you implement traditional firewalls, they block these unauthorized access attacks, right? You can also install filtering to stop unwanted attachments and emails. That's how these ransomware attacks happen. Usually, believe it or not, it's not this advanced persistent threat. It's usually in a very superficial, very simplistic, elementary way. It's usually an employee just clicking away. There's this link. Oh, there's a free giveaway. Oh, would you like to earn $10 from Amazon.com? And they click it, and they're clicking it and utilizing devices within your network that have administrative control. So that's why security awareness, and I'm going to tell you, security awareness is the greatest preventative because it stops the foolish employee from clicking away. I don't click away at stuff. They say I have something free, I delete it. There's nothing free. Okay. What else? Running continuous scans, right? When you install anti-malware, by the way, and ransomware software, what's really important is that this type of software, that you invest into it. A lot of companies, they like to get free stuff, and I'm not saying that there isn't quality open source. I just think that there's some things that you need to pay for. And one of them is installing and, getting good quality anti-malware, types of ransomware software. These are some of the good examples of it. Let's see, I'm trying to look here. Yeah, let's see. Here's the second set, right? Recovery points, I've already talked to you about that. Security awareness, I've already talked to you about that. If you really want to go into, obviously, enforcing very strong passwords with MFA, that's very important. They say that 3 out of every 4 people use the same password for multiple sites. And when you start staggering that in 1/3, you can really start figuring out if you're able to compromise one. You have access to that individual's multiple applications or whatever they interface. So I always tell people, think before you click, right? I don't click at all. And make sure that your extensions are viewable. In Windows, it allows you to set up your computers to show the file extensions. And when you look at the file, that extension is the dot followed by 3 or 4 letters indicating the type of file. So if it's a PDF, right, or a Word docx, that's a Windows Word document. That's going to allow you to see if the file is an executable file. So if it's a .exe or a VBS or SCR, do not click. And by discerning and being able to view it, you can discern it. That'll help reduce the chance of accidental clicking. Again, I don't click. How about don't click? All right, think and don't click. I should write that. That's one of the best ways to avoid ransomware. How about that?
Thank you so much. There is another question in chat box. Can AI replace IT security professionals in near future?
Can AI replace IT securities individuals? I think that they're already functioning in a fashion where they're replacing cybersecurity engineers, and rightly do so. They're able to think and respond so much quicker than us. I don't know if you've ever been to Embry-Riddle. They're the #1 aeronautical institution, I believe, in the world, in the U.S. and in the world, over the Air Force. Can you imagine that? And they have a supercomputer there. And that supercomputer is utilizing artificial intelligence. And the reason why they're using it within the supercomputer is because it can think millions of times faster, respond a million times faster than a human brain. So it already has in many different ways. Now, could it function at a high level in the context of making very critical decisions? Sure. within variables, right? Within means. But it already is. And we need to. I mean, there's so many threats out in the world. We need something understanding the enemy. So yeah, the answer is yes. I mean, it's starting to get bizarre. If you go over to different parts of Asia, they're using artificial intelligence, to function in your household, to cook your meals, to be your friend. It's kind of strange, really, right? In some of the Asian countries, I'm not even going to go there, but can you imagine one of your AI machines goes rogue on you? Yeah. So.
Thank you.
Next question.
We have Mr. Rafi Khan. You have raised your
Great.
hand.
Hi, Mr. Raymond. Thank you so much for being with us, sir. It's a very interactive session. I believe everyone is enjoying. So my question is basically has two parts. At the first part, I will mention that, sir, you know that there are companies, sir, there are many companies who are not using any cloud-based services, like they keep their data, offsite data. They keep their data as offsite. They keep their data in offline as backups. So they don't use cloud-based services for financial reasons or whatever. For such circumstances, sometimes many cyber attacks happen, like ransomware, etc. That's one part. At the other side of the coin, you mentioned at one part of the presentation, you mentioned that no country should purchase some security solutions from other country that has some collision with that country, right? So my question is basically, sir, you know that there are many countries in the world who are imposed sanctions by United States for many reasons, like Russia, Iran, North Korea, and there are many other countries. So consider for a moment that for Russia there are thousands of companies. So there are thousands of companies that have nothing to do with geopolitical or geopolitical affairs or war or anything. So there are millions of people are working there, but many companies, they are using Microsoft services, they are using Oracle SQL, they are using Amazon AWS service. So those United States, those US companies have to comply with the US government. So when USA posts sanctions on a country, at that time, those companies are bound to follow the US regulations, right? So at that time, those companies cannot retrieve data from those companies, right? Like Amazon, Google, Microsoft, etc. So in such circumstances, sir, I'm telling you, consider for a moment that we don't have the tools or we don't have the power to control the geopolitical affairs or war or anything, right? So for such circumstances, when our company or any company, we are giving access or we are keeping our data storing our data in cloud services. So what will be your recommendation in such circumstances?
Okay. First of all, I really appreciate what your question and your concern, because I have no issues with the Russian people. I have no issues with the Chinese people. I have no issues with many of the Palestinian people. I'm in Palestine. I even went to Palestine, which is kind of crazy in some cases, right? Because I have a Hebrew last name, even though I'm a converted Christian, and I have no problems with the Iranian people, right? But I do have a problem when a government has control over every aspect, right? For example, in China, how much business does Mile2 do in China? Or how much business does Mile2 do in Iran or in Russia or North Korea? Do you know how much business we do? Zero. Because I practice what I preach. And within the Chinese, I want to visit China. I want to experience their culture. And I know there's a lot of hardworking people there, right? Wonderful people. But the reality is, for example, we have cryptocurrency, right? They've banned cryptocurrency and they've introduced the yuan, right? Why do you think they introduced the yuan? Because they want to see exactly what everybody is spending their money on, where they're spending on. And eventually they're going to regulate how much money they can spend or what they could use it on, you know? And ultimately, all the data, like for example, in TikTok, I don't have TikTok. My kids don't have TikTok. And the reason why is
security vulnerabilities, as you mentioned, and as we have known already, they have asked for so many permissions that no app should have asked for.
Check this out. Don't use it. You're asking a question and posing it in a fashion where we have to work with Russia. You do not. That's your decision. I don't. And I'm on a global scale, and I've done pretty good without dealing with Russia or China or North Korea. And so the answer is very simple. Do not utilize a software or a company that is under the control of a nation, state, we call them detractor states or nations that, function in this fashion. They have control. So I think that the answer is very simple. We have a whole world, right? And you can use software and use services from countries that don't do what China does or what Russia does. Okay.
Right.
And that's my answer. It's very simple. I'm very, I understand the geopolitical. I'm in a PhD program focusing on public policy. That's all I think about. Right. And I'm in this program because I care about the people here in the country. And I know we're in our bubble. You guys probably look at us, we're in our bubble. I get it. But I get to interface with people all over the world, including you guys. And I empathize. And that's why I'm a big proponent, of organizations that share data all over the world in an open source manner. That's the way that we can respond to malicious agencies and gangs, right? These cyber criminals. But no, my answer is don't use it. You're fine. We're addicted to technology. Get off of it. I'm not in, I don't want to go into it, but I think we're so addicted and we assume that we have to use these services, and you do not. That's a lie. You choose to use these services, right? When I'm traveling, I do not use open source, hotspots. I do not. I use my own phone and my own data. I don't go on other people's networks because I know what happens all the time, right? And I'd rather pay a little bit more than, can't sleep for 3 days because someone has my identity or someone's, deep faking me or so that's my answer. And I'm very adamant about it. Just don't use it. And you can, trust me, you can do it. Okay. Did you have a second question? Because I love this question about the impact of ChatGPT. I'm ready to rock that question. Who's the next question, or what's the next question?
Okay, we can take this question, the last question from the chat box. He has asked about that any impact of ChatGPT in cybersecurity.
Okay, that's a really interesting question, right? So, obviously as a cybersecurity expert, I'm always staying up to date on these threats, right? And different techniques that help us respond to, emerging threats. And one tool that in the cybersecurity arena, ChatGPT, which is for a lot of people that may not know, it's a really powerful agnostic, or what they call NLP, natural language processing model. But anyways, one of the key benefits of this technology is its ability to analyze and absorb and interpret large amount of data, like text, different types of texts, right? And they do so really accurately. And what's really good about it is they're used very heavily in logs, especially in cyber incidents, right? So one of the things that I love to do is when somebody is compromised, they give us a call and I say, hey, have you looked at the logs? So every week, that's part of our audits. We always tell the cybersecurity engineers, every week, look at the logs. Have there been any flags? Because there's so many events, right? GPT can really identify any anomaly or a different type of pattern that might, I guess, poses a threat, can interpret it as a threat. So it's really good in reports. And another benefit is that I guess it has a weird way, it kind of functions like AI, has the ability to like generate human-like text, right? So it's very useful when you're creating reports, or you have presentations, or you're trying to extrapolate and present cybersecurity incidences and things like that. And they're really easy to understand. So, and if I could kind of explain it, you have, when I do a penetration test, there is the technical report and then the executive summary. And so GPT kind of extrapolates and interprets and ascertains everything and dumps it as an executive summary. So even an executive team who's not technically savvy can understand it. And that's what it does, right? It makes a lot of complex verbiage into a very simplistic, in a very simplistic way to understand it. So those are the two main things that you can benefit, in my opinion, from ChatGPT. I'm pretty curious why you're asking that. I think Rizal, is that? I apologize, I'm not good with with names, but that's a pretty interesting question.
Thanks a lot,
here it is.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Raymond.
Here's another question. 100% capable to protect against ransomware, even if your systems are affected by ransomware, they could roll back your data. That's true. Well, of course, if you have 6 month, let's say, to say it's 100% is a lie. I think it's like, when we say, hey, we give you a 100% chance of passing the exam, that's really not true. What you're really saying is we're just giving you a bunch of chances to pass, take the exam. And what they're probably doing is that if they're giving you 100%, they're probably assuming that it's not, that you don't have a corrupt I guess a point in which they saved your data as long as it wasn't corrupt. They can go ahead and utilize that image and avoid any, I guess, flawed, data that's been, flawed, or corrupted or whatever, and they roll back. So I think maybe that's what they're trying to say. But in the circumstance of the Colonial Pipeline, the FBI, after they did their assessment and some of these team members, they believe that they were in there for about 5 or 6 months. So so it's pretty evident that the Colonial Pipeline didn't have I guess, safe data that would be sufficient to run their infrastructure, or else they wouldn't have paid the ransomware, right? And I guarantee you that Colonial Pipeline has a whole lot more money than most of us do. So that's why you have to be very inventive and very creative when it comes to ransomware. And we've been subject to it. I've learned a lot being in the cybersecurity space. We're attacked all the time. DDoS is all the time. right? EC Council, they even defaced the EC Council website, right? Even within the government agencies, within a nuclear plant, they defaced it. They got into it. So yeah, it's possible that you can have a secure point to avoid ransomware, but does that image or does that backup, is it sufficient to run your business today from 6 months ago or to a year? So that's why you have to have multiple points of security to do your best to prevent and detect ransomware. Because as soon as you detect it, you got a week or 2 weeks, right, of backed up data. You could use it. It's fresh. It's there. It's usable. You can still run your business at that point. But when they've been in there 6 months, right, these are very sophisticated individuals. They're not like, kiddies out in the, in the back end, drinking Red Bull. And no, they're professionals. These guys are professionals. They have ties and suits. They're driving nice cars. They have a wife and kids. This is their job. And they're like a sharpshooter. They're just waiting, patient, one shot, one kill. That's what they do. So 100%, I guess so, kind of. Is it does it work? Probably not if it's a year ago, right? Do we have any more questions? I'm enjoying this time. It's great.
I think there is no questions right now, and I would like to thank you, Mr. Raymond, that he has came with us in this conversation, and we are glad to be here with you. Okay, we are going to wrap up this conversation and the conference for today.
Yeah, I'm just taking this in. One of my engineers, he's on listening to me. He's smarter than me. He said immutable backups are new, and they're very, they do a great job in preventing ransomware. So, yeah, I got amazing engineers, guys, and they're just so much smarter than me. It's either on my team, right? We got a lot of Jedis. So, hey, let's move on. So there's no more questions here. Let me, first of all, just say thank you to everybody before we go. And right here, you can see is our free certified vulnerability assessor. That's the code. That's where you go to. It's only good for one person, and you have until this weekend to redeem it. It's good for a year. You can't sell it. You can't, yeah. And we only have a limited amount. So I think the first X amount, which I'm not going to tell you, get it, and then everybody else, they can't get it. So there's your code, capital BTB CBA, numerical 01623, and go there. And this is done because of our amazing partnership, right? And we're really excited to be in Bangladesh this year. And we really want to make a major impact. So we want you to, kind of give a little taste of what Mile2 is all about. I think you're going to really appreciate and enjoy the products. Okay. So the only thing this thing doesn't entail is the cyber range. But it does have the course video, the ebook, the prep guide, the lab guide, the exam simulator, 1 year access to courseware and the exam. Let you take it a second free time just in case. All right. Well, that is my thank you. And I don't know. I appreciate your time, guys.